Olá, bom dia. Carl Munson here on the Good Morning Portugal live stream. We have a podcast and a YouTube channel as well. And this morning, it seems only right to go through the Portuguese president's state of emergency address from yesterday evening. The state of emergency came into force at midnight last night. It is Thursday, the 19th of March. Okay, so let's have a look at the world numbers as we normally do to begin with, and see what the picture is across the world, and then focus specifically on the numbers in Portugal. And for this, I use the Worldometer, and you can find all the links I use on the www.goodmorningportugal.com website. So let's scroll back up to the top of this page. The graphs of growth are there as well. All you might need really in quite a factual and informative sort of data-based way here. 220,229 cases worldwide, and there is a breakdown by country. If you're an expat in Portugal and you want to find out what's happening in your own country or country of origin, you can look further down, as I will do in a moment. Deaths across the world, 8,981. And it's always reassuring and uplifting to see the number of recoveries, 85,769. So let's roll down to Portugal and see what the numbers are currently for Portugal reported. Total cases here in Portugal, 642. Total deaths, 2. 2/3, I think. It really does depend on where you're getting your figures. But, I mean, let's not argue over that. 2 deaths reported here. Total recovered, 4. So active cases at 636, and 18 people in a serious or critical condition, with 63 total cases per 1 million of population. Okay, so this will take some time. I think it's a worthwhile thing to do. If you go to the Good Morning Portugal page on Facebook, we have had quite a number of wonderful Portuguese friends and associates who've given us their translation / interpretation of the president's speech last night. But thanks to Safe Communities Portugal, I'm going to go through the translation line by line now, which seems like quite a useful thing to do in a leisurely way, so that we can really see and digest what's been said there. So this is from safecommunitiesportugal.com, a really good source of information, and they publish situation reports, probably 2 or 3 a day, certainly at least 1. And they'll bring you up to date with anything that seemed to be important and prescient. They also reported yesterday or the day before that some people are taking advantage of the situation with some scams, telephone scams and so on, seeking to raise funds. So be careful with that sort of stuff that's going on as well, as people are becoming desperate and yeah, kind of unpleasant in this current situation. But anyway, this is the president of the Republic, State of the Nation, addressing the nation regarding the state of emergency, President Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa. And he said, this was at 8 o'clock yesterday, "I just enacted a state of emergency, an exceptional decision at an exceptional time. The COVID-19 pandemic is not just any epidemic like the ones we already know in our democracy. It is being and will be more intense. It will last longer until its last effects disappear. It is being and will be a test never experienced by our National Health Service and Portuguese society, called for unprecedented restraint and family treatment. It is and will be a huge challenge for the way we live and for our economy. Just think about health, education, behavior in families, work, the effects on tourism, exports, investment, the fragility of families and companies, particularly small and medium-sized companies. This war, because it is a real war, has been going on for a month, started after European neighbors, and for this reason, it could take longer to reach the peak of its expression. And what have we done in the past 15 days? We understand, and rightly so, that in our social state, and it was and is a task for everyone, and not for everyone abandoned to their fate. We bet on containment to try to limit contagion, to buy time to prepare the response, and to avoid a very fast concentration of demand for healthcare. In the containment, the National Health Service made and continues to make daily heroism by the hand of its notable professionals, and with them, everyone who is guaranteeing security and the production and distribution of essential goods for the country to function. And the Portuguese, with the experience of those who have lived everything in a history of almost 9 centuries, disciplined themselves, understood that the combat was very hard and very long, and were and have been exemplary. In an almost quarantine which reveals the good sense of respecting the guidelines of the health authorities, and I tell you by my own testimony, it is our duty to follow the generic guidelines and most of all, the specific recommendations of the health authorities. The government, which has a Herculean task in hand, has adopted measures trying to balance restraint in the public space and at the borders and not stopping economic and social life. Measures that we, President, Parliament, parties and social partners support, aware that only unity allows to wage and then win wars. Having arrived here, I understood that I should call the Council of State and, under the terms of the Constitution, I listened to the government and requested authorization from the Assembly of the Republic to declare a state of emergency. I knew and I know that the Portuguese are divided. Some claim it the day before yesterday and are those who consider it expendable, premature or dangerous. I knew and I know that in the midst of a crisis, people feel so anxious, so distressed, that what they ask for a day or a week once given is soon followed by more demands or complaints as concerns or fears swell. I knew and I know that many expect from the state of emergency the miracle that everything will resolve in a minute, in a day, in a week, in a month. Still, I understood that it was in the national interest to take this step. I am grateful to the state councillors for expressing their opinions, to the Prime Minister and the government for adhering in solidarity and collaborating in a decisive way in the content of this decree, and to the Assembly of the Republic for having generously authorised it, readiness and broad consensus. 5 essential reasons explain the step taken. First, anticipation and reinforcement of solidarity between public authorities and theirs with the people. Other countries which began to suffer the pandemic earlier than we did tried the gradual steps, and only now have they come to more drastic decisions which demand greater adhesion from the peoples and greater solidarity from the organs of power. We, who started later, must learn from others and save steps, even if it seems that we have sinned by excess and not by defect. The Portuguese people have been exemplary, but this political signal given now, and given not only by the government, but by the President of the Republic, Assembly of the Republic and government, is an affirmation of institutional solidarity, confidence and determination for what has to be done in the days, in the weeks, in the months ahead. Second, prevention. The people say prevention is better than cure. What was approved does not impose concrete decisions on the government. It gives it a wider base of law to take them. Thus, it allows measures that may be needed in the future to be taken quickly and at adjusted levels, namely, in the internal and international circulation, in the field of work, in the human concentrations with greater risk, in the access to goods and services imposed by the crisis, in the guarantee of normality, in the satisfaction of basic needs, in the tasks of civil protection in which, under the law, are already called up civilian security forces and military. What would be later if it was necessary to act in one or another case in this preventative framework, and it did not exist. Third, sure, this legal basis provides, I think this is a surety or certainty, this legal basis provides the general framework for intervention and ensures that after the crisis is over, the legal basis of the measures already taken and to be taken will not be questioned. Fourth, containment. This is a confined state of emergency which does not reach the essential or fundamental rights because it obeys the precise end of the fight against the public health crisis and the creation of conditions of normality in the production and distribution of goods essential to that fight. Fifth, flexibility. The state of emergency lasts 15 days, at the end of which it can be renewed with an assessment on the ground of the state of the pandemic and its predictable evolution. It is a strong political sign of unity of political power which prevents situations before they can occur, establishes a framework that confers certainty, empowers the government, but does not regulate its exercise, and allows a re-evaluation in its application in a combat that changes contours in the time. It is a democratic signal, democratic due to the convergence of the various powers of the state, democratic because it is democracy using the exceptional means that it provides for times of exceptional gravity. It is not an interruption of democracy. It is democracy trying to prevent an irreparable interruption in people's lives. It is, however, a vaccine. It is not, however, a vaccine nor a miracle solution. that dispense with our daily combat, the reinforced support to grow the National Health Service, the capacity of people and families to continue trying to limit the contagion so that the numbers to grow less than the worst scenarios, and so that the treatment can be more and more at home. Everything earlier than later. Especially because at one point, the specialists are clear, it depends on the restraint in these coming weeks to be able to shorten deadlines, save patients, and above all, save lives. We therefore all have to do our part to contribute to going as far and as quickly as possible in this unequal struggle. And the faster we go, the faster we can save lives, save health, but also focus on the effects in the long run on jobs, on incomes, on families, on businesses. And even now, lives and health are only saved if in the meantime the economy does not die. So the state is helping the economy to endure these long, more acute months, doing what you can to protect jobs, families, and businesses. But we have to do our part. Do not stop production. Do not panic in terms of supplies as if the country is closing. Realize that limiting contagion and spreading people infected at home is and must be compatible with keeping our economy alive. So it is in time of war, economies cannot die. I finish with a request. In this war, as in all wars, there is only one effective enemy, invisible, insidious, and therefore dangerous, which has several names. Discouragement, tiredness, time fatigue that never ends, and we have to fight him every day. Against discouragement for what goes wrong or less well. Against the fatigue that the battles are still many and seem difficult to win. Against the fatigue that restrains the will, it increases doubts, fuels indignations and revolts. Anything that weakens us in this war will lengthen the struggle and make it more costly and painful. Resistance, solidarity, and courage are the watchwords. It is true, because in this war, nobody lies or will lie to anyone. This tells you and guarantees you the President of the Republic, for you directly elected to be at all times the good and the bad, the first and not the last of those responsible to the Portuguese. The road is still long, it is difficult, and it is ungrateful. But I don't doubt for a second that we'll beat him as best we can and know. In our history, we have always overcome crucial challenges, and that is why we have almost 900 years of life. We were born before many others. We still exist when they are no longer what they were and how they were. Let me finish with an example of what we're like. The example of the granddaughter, a nurse who, on the day she lost her grandfather, the first mortal victim, said to me, "President, it's only 9 days before I return to the fight." We are like this because we are Portugal. So there you go. That's the state of emergency address from the Portuguese President Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa, and yeah, quite an amazing address. I think, you know, it's very statesmanlike, stabilizing, you know, with gravity. I'm quite encouraged and inspired by that, for what it's worth, and interested to know what you think and where you're at right now as a result of these new measures that will come in. I mean, that's kind of it sets the context, doesn't it, that speech, and then more specific powers will come. I haven't lived in a state of emergency. I don't know what that's like, and if you know me at all, you'll be aware that I bemoan the lack of elders in our culture, and those who you can look to who have been through similar things, who can share their insight and wisdom and stability. But we seem to be at a bit of a lack with those people in our culture, and we've all atomized into much smaller and smaller units. And it's very reassuring to see that the Portuguese president there is as well as he would, and as well as the politicians would, underline the importance of maintaining the economy, as you might expect from a Portuguese president, an important reference to the strength and power of family life as well, and the importance of maintaining the importance of that, and making it a high priority. So I guess we can organise us, those who are strangers, foreigners, immigrants, expats in this country, might extend to each other in that familial way, and be virtual family to each other. And I think I'm going to leave it there without if there's no additional comments or input from anybody who's watching or listening this morning. We will continue to update you with what the tangible and concrete measures are on the Facebook page. and more socially, and in that way of reaching out and creating virtual family, a really challenging time. This is truly a time where the word unprecedented can be used with in its fullest, and most understandable definition. I don't think many of us have lived through this, and perhaps those old enough to have lived through very testing times on a similar scale might step forward and bring reassurance to the younger ones. I think that's really helpful at the moment. And please do that in the Stay Positive Portugal group on Facebook as well. But let's let's find ways of supporting and reaching out to each other, whether that be in a one-to-one phone call, reaching out to people who you are Facebook friends, WhatsApp, whatever. And just as one of our friends Annie was saying, just a simple phone call to somebody to check in to make sure they're all right is really powerful at the moment, I think. And I've got a neighbor who's I think she's 80, and she's seen the comings and goings of life in Portugal, and it was quite amazing. She sent me a WhatsApp message. I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting a handwritten note. I wasn't even expecting a handwritten note, but if she were to communicate with me, I suspected a handwritten note with beautiful scripty sort of writing, excuse me, coming through the door. But no, I gave her our phone number just recently, and she WhatsApped me late last night, and I said to her, if there's anything we can do. It's beautiful because we can use, if you're on WhatsApp, you can use Google Translate. So I said, I used some of the Portuguese I knew, some I didn't know, sent her a message, and bless her, 80 years of age, she returned the favor. If there's anything you need, ask me as well, she said. This wonderful 80-year-old or so lady next door. So very interesting times. Let's stick together. Let's look after each other. Let's, as the immigrants, expats, foreigners, visitors to Portugal who find ourselves here in this state of emergency, stick together and reach out, obviously, as well to our Portuguese hosts and neighbours and friends, and see what we can do together, as the president suggested there, on that familial level, and support each other when our heads drop, which is also what he anticipated. So do take great care, and stay positive, stay healthy, stay close to the ground, and stay in touch with each other. Take care. Bye for now.